Have you ever walked into an ordinary place, only to witness something that changes your soul forever? This story will remind you that heroes don't always wear badges or suits. Sometimes they're just quiet people doing their jobs. So before we begin, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Kindness Tales Live, because what you're about to hear might just restore your faith in humanity. It was a chilly Thursday night at the Lexington Avenue subway station. The clock read 11:47 p.m. when Daniel Rivera, a 37-year-old night clerk, poured himself another cup of burnt coffee. He'd been working the late shift for nearly a decade, checking tickets, monitoring the cameras, and making sure no one slept on the benches. The night was usually quiet, filled only with the hum of flickering fluorescent lights and the echo of distant train wheels screeching along the rails. But that night, something felt off. Daniel noticed the bathroom door had been locked for nearly 20 minutes. Normally he wouldn't think twice, people came and went all the time, but the faintest, almost imperceptible sound made him freeze. It was a cry, soft at first, like a whimper caught between walls, then another. A higher pitch this time, a baby's cry. His stomach clenched. Babies didn't belong in subway bathrooms. He hesitated for only a moment before grabbing his key ring and rushing down the dim corridor. The hallway smelled of damp concrete and bleach. He banged on the door. "Hello? Ma'am, are you okay in there?" No answer, just the muffled sob of a woman and the fragile wail of an infant. His instinct screamed that something was terribly wrong. He unlocked the door. What he saw would stay with him forever. A young girl, maybe 16 or 17, sat on the cold tile floor. Her face pale, hair stuck to her forehead with sweat. In her trembling arms, wrapped in a torn hoodie, was a newborn baby still streaked with blood. The girl's eyes darted toward him, terrified like a cornered animal. "Please, don't call the police," she whispered. "He'll find me." Daniel froze. The fluorescent light above them flickered, casting long shadows across the cracked tiles. He'd seen people in distress before, drunks, addicts, lost travelers, but never anything like this. Never a girl barely older than a child herself, holding a life that had just entered the world. He knelt slowly, keeping his voice gentle. "Hey, it's okay. You're safe now. Let me help you." The baby whimpered again, its tiny fingers curling in the air. Daniel noticed how weak the girl looked, her lips pale, her hands shaking uncontrollably. She must have given birth right there, alone, frightened, without help. "I didn't mean to. I just didn't know where else to go," she stammered. Daniel pulled off his jacket and gently draped it over her shoulders. His heart pounded as he fumbled for his phone, dialing emergency services. But when the operator answered, the girl panicked. "No, please," she cried. "If they find out where I am, he'll hurt me again." "Who?" Daniel asked softly. She bit her lip, tears streaming down her face. "The man who did this. He said he'd kill me if I told anyone." Daniel felt his chest tighten. Suddenly, the subway didn't feel cold anymore. It felt suffocating. He could hear the trains rumbling above, indifferent to the storm of fear unfolding below. He put his phone down slowly. "Listen to me," he said. "No one's going to hurt you or your baby. You're safe here, okay? I promise." For a moment, she just stared at him, eyes wide with disbelief. Then she nodded faintly, clutching the baby tighter. Daniel knew then this wasn't just about saving her. It was about protecting that tiny life from a darkness she'd barely escaped. He didn't yet realize that by opening that bathroom door, he'd just stepped into a nightmare far deeper than he could imagine. Because somewhere out there, the man she feared was already looking for her. Daniel helped the trembling girl to her feet, his jacket still wrapped around her shoulders. The baby whimpered softly, its fragile breath fogging the cold air. He led them to the small staff room at the end of the hall, a cramped space with an old heater, a dented metal table, and a coffee machine that never quite worked right. "Sit down, sweetheart," he said quietly. "You need to rest. The baby, too." The girl hesitated, her eyes darting toward the security camera in the corner. Is that thing recording?" she whispered, her voice weak but urgent. Daniel glanced up at it. "Not this one. It's been broken for months," he lied. He didn't know why he said it. Maybe because she looked like she'd run from something that had already taken too much from her. She seemed to relax a little, clutching the baby close. "What's your name?" Daniel asked softly. "Lila," she murmured, "and this is Hope." Daniel felt a lump form in his throat. That's a beautiful name. Lila smiled faintly, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. She looked down at the tiny face in her arms and whispered, "She's all I have now." Daniel fetched a towel from the storage shelf and handed it to her. "Here, you need to keep her warm." As Lila wrapped the baby, Daniel couldn't stop his thoughts from racing. He'd seen stories on the news, runaway teens, abuse, missing persons. But now one of those headlines was sitting right in front of him. He needed to call someone, a hospital, maybe the police. But every time he looked at her shaking hands, he hesitated. She must have sensed his inner conflict because she suddenly said, "Please don't call anyone yet. I just need a few hours, please." "Lila," Daniel began carefully, "you and your baby need medical help. She could get sick. You could too." "I know," she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. "But if they find out where I am, he'll take her. He'll take my baby." Daniel's voice softened. "Who are you talking about?" Her breathing quickened. "He was my mom's boyfriend. He said he'd take care of us after she died. But then, he started hurting me. When I found out I was pregnant, he locked me in the basement, said no one would believe me anyway." Daniel felt rage rise inside him. He clenched his fists under the table, trying to keep his voice steady. "You ran away?" She nodded, her eyes glassy. "The night my baby came, I broke a window and ran. I didn't even have shoes. I just kept running until I found the subway. I thought maybe I could hide here." Her words hit Daniel like a blow. He couldn't imagine the terror she must have lived through. Alone, trapped, carrying a child born out of pain. The baby stirred and began to cry again. Lila rocked her gently, humming a shaky lullaby that broke Daniel's heart. "You're safe now," he said again, though he wasn't sure he believed it himself. Outside the staff room, the city moved on as if nothing had changed. The trains roared past, lights flickering through the cracks under the door. But inside, the world felt smaller, quieter, more fragile. Daniel poured her a cup of water and she drank it in silence. He glanced at the wall clock, 12:36 a.m. He needed to think fast. If that man was truly dangerous, Lila wasn't just scared, she was being hunted. He looked at her, determination setting in. "I won't let anyone hurt you or Hope, but we have to be smart. You can't stay here long. There are cameras in the main tunnel. If he's looking for you, he might check the stations." Lila's eyes widened. "He used to work for the transit department," she said. "He knows these tunnels better than anyone." Daniel's blood ran cold. He turned toward the dark hallway beyond the door, suddenly aware of every echo, every sound. "Okay," he said, steadying his voice. "You stay here. Lock the door. I'll find something to cover the window and get you some food. We'll figure this out, I promise." She hesitated, then whispered, "Why are you helping me?" Daniel looked at her, the fluorescent light reflecting in his tired eyes. "Because someone once helped me when I had nothing," he said softly. "Now it's my turn." He stepped out into the empty corridor, heart pounding, unaware that just beyond the far platform, someone was watching the security feeds and that someone had already seen Lila. Daniel walked briskly down the corridor, the echo of his footsteps bouncing off the tiled walls. The subway was quieter now, that eerie kind of silence that makes you hear your own heartbeat. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, something beyond what he already knew. He entered the control booth, where a wall of dusty monitors displayed live feeds from different parts of the station. He scanned each one carefully, the empty platforms, the ticket gates, the flickering stairwell. For a moment, everything looked normal. Then, on camera 6, he froze. A tall man in a dark coat was standing near the vending machines, looking around slowly. He wasn't just loitering, he was searching. His eyes flicked toward every corner, every camera, every hallway. Then he turned and stared directly into one of the lenses, his face partly illuminated. Daniel's blood ran cold. That face matched the one on the missing persons alert he'd seen 2 weeks ago on the staff bulletin. The man's name was Roy Tanner, wanted for questioning in the disappearance of a teenage girl named Lila Porter. Daniel's stomach twisted. This was him. This was the man Lila had run from. He leaned closer to the screen, watching as Roy adjusted his jacket and began walking toward the lower corridors, the direction of the staff room. Panic surged through Daniel's chest. He quickly grabbed his phone but then hesitated. If he called the police now, Roy might find Lila before help arrived. He needed to stall him. He stepped out of the booth, locking it behind him, and hurried back toward the vending area. His mind raced. How did Roy know she was here? Had he tracked her somehow? Was someone helping him? When Daniel turned the corner, Roy was already there. Their eyes met. "Evening," Roy said with a thin, unsettling smile. "You work here?" Daniel swallowed hard. "Yeah, just closing up. Last trains are running slow tonight." Roy nodded, glancing down the hallway. "You seen a girl around here?" 16, maybe 17. Brown hair. She might have looked lost. Daniel's heart hammered, but he forced his face to stay calm. "Can't say I have. Lot of people pass through. Maybe try upstairs?" Roy stepped closer, his tone shifting. "You sure about that? Someone told me she came through this station. I just want to make sure she's safe." Safe. The word felt like poison coming from his mouth. Daniel gripped the ring of keys in his pocket, his knuckles turning white. "Sorry, sir. I'd remember if I'd seen anyone like that." Roy's eyes narrowed. For a moment, they just stared at each other, the hum of the fluorescent lights filling the silence. Then Roy smiled again, too calmly, and turned away. "Thanks for your help," he said, walking toward the platform. Daniel waited until he was gone, then ran back toward the staff room, his breath ragged. He burst through the door, locking it behind him. Lila jumped. "What's wrong?" "He's here," Daniel said, voice trembling. "Roy, he's in the station." Her face went white. She clutched the baby instinctively, holding her close. No, he found me." Daniel put a hand on her shoulder. "Listen to me. We'll get through this. I'm calling the police now. You stay quiet, don't open this door for anyone but me." He dialed 911 with shaking hands. "This is Daniel Rivera, Lexington subway station clerk. I need immediate assistance. Suspect Roy Tanner, wanted for kidnapping and assault, is here. We've got the victim and a newborn with her." The operator confirmed units were on their way. "Stay put and stay safe," she said. But safety was the last thing Daniel felt. Outside the door, a faint sound echoed. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, moving closer. Lila's eyes filled with tears as the steps stopped right outside the staff room. The handle rattled. Then a voice came, muffled but clear. "Lila." Her entire body stiffened. "It's him." Daniel motioned for her to stay quiet. He moved closer to the door, pressing his weight against it. "I know you're in there," Roy said softly. "You can't hide from me forever." Daniel's pulse roared in his ears. Somewhere in the distance, the faint siren of approaching police cars echoed through the tunnels. But would they get there in time? He reached for the emergency fire axe mounted beside the door. His hand shook as he gripped the handle. "Stay back," he whispered to Lila. "Whatever happens, don't move." Then came a sudden bang on the door, so loud the baby started crying. Daniel raised the axe. The man outside laughed, a low, cruel sound. "You think you can keep her from me?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "I don't think I know." The pounding on the staff room door grew louder, the metal shaking with each strike. The baby's cries filled the air, echoing off the concrete walls. Daniel's hands trembled as he gripped the axe, positioning himself between the door and Lila. "Please," Lila whispered, her voice cracking. "He won't stop. He always finds me." "Not tonight," Daniel said firmly. "Not while I'm here." Outside, Roy's voice turned cold, almost calm again. "You think you're a hero, huh? You don't even know what she's done." Daniel ignored him, trying to focus on the sirens growing louder in the distance. But then Roy said something that made him falter. "She didn't tell you, did she? About what happened to her mother?" Lila froze. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Daniel glanced back at her. She looked terrified, her eyes wide and glassy. Roy chuckled darkly through the door. "She's not the innocent little girl she pretends to be. She killed her own mother, stabbed her in her sleep. I tried to help her, tried to get her help, but she ran. And now she's spinning her little sob story again." Daniel's chest tightened. "You're lying," he snapped. "Am I?" Roy said smoothly. "Check the news. It's all there. A runaway teen, mother found dead, no forced entry, no witnesses. Only fingerprints they found were hers." Daniel turned back to Lila. "Is that true?" Tears streamed down her cheeks. "No, I swear it's not." He did it. He killed her when she tried to stop him from hurting me. Her voice broke. I tried to stop him, but he said no one would believe me. So I ran. The truth in her voice cut through the tension like glass. Daniel didn't need proof. He saw it in her eyes. The terror wasn't an act. She'd been running from a monster, not her guilt. Lila, he said softly, I believe you. Outside, the banging stopped. The sudden silence was even worse. Daniel pressed his ear to the door. Nothing. Then from somewhere down the hall came the faint sound of breaking glass. He's found another way in, Daniel whispered. He scanned the room. There was an old maintenance hatch that led to the storage tunnels, barely big enough for a person to crawl through, but it might be their only chance. He moved quickly, pulling away the crate that blocked it. Take hope and go through here, he told Lila. There's a ladder at the end that leads to the street exit. Don't stop, don't look back. She shook her head. No, what about you? I'll hold him off until the police get here. Her lip quivered. You'll get hurt. Daniel gave a small smile. Maybe, but at least one of us needs to make it out of here, and it's not going to be him. Lila hesitated for only a second, then nodded. She kissed her baby's forehead, whispering something only Hope could hear, and crawled into the tunnel. Daniel closed the hatch behind her, sliding the crate back into place. Then he turned toward the door just as it burst open. Roy stormed in, eyes wild, face twisted with rage. Where is she? He shouted. Daniel swung the axe in warning. Don't take another step. Roy sneered. You think that'll stop me? You don't get it. She's mine. She belongs to me. Something inside Daniel snapped. All the quiet nights, all the people he'd seen broken by cruelty, by men like this. It boiled over. No one belongs to you, he growled. Roy lunged. Daniel swung the axe sideways, the blade connecting with the metal doorframe, sending sparks flying. Roy tackled him, slamming him against the wall. The axe clattered to the floor. Daniel fought back with everything he had, but Roy was stronger. They struggled, fists and elbows flying, crashing into shelves and knocking over boxes. Daniel felt a sharp pain in his ribs as Roy punched him hard. But then Daniel saw the fire alarm lever beside him. He reached out desperately and pulled it. A shrill alarm echoed through the entire station. Red lights flashed. Somewhere above, the train stopped. The noise disoriented Roy just enough for Daniel to grab a metal bar and swing it hard. It connected with Roy's shoulder, sending him staggering back. Sirens were now blaring from outside, closer this time. The police were arriving. Roy stumbled toward the door, clutching his arm. You think this is over? He snarled. She'll never be free from me. Daniel raised the bar again. Yes, she will. And as Roy lunged one last time, the police stormed in, shouting commands. Roy froze, surrounded by blinding flashlights and drawn guns. Within seconds, he was on the ground, cuffed and shouting threats that echoed uselessly into the air. Daniel dropped the bar, breathing hard, his whole body trembling. He didn't even realize he was bleeding until an officer grabbed his arm to steady him. You okay, sir? He nodded weakly. She's in the tunnel, with the baby. Please make sure they're safe. And for the first time that night, he let himself collapse to the floor. When Daniel opened his eyes, the sharp smell of antiseptic filled his nose. The room was quiet except for the steady beeping of a monitor beside him. He blinked at the white ceiling, disoriented until the events of the night came rushing back. Lila, the baby, Roy, the fight. He sat up with a groan, his ribs aching beneath the hospital gown. Easy, a voice said gently. A police officer stood at the foot of the bed. You're lucky to be alive, Mr. Rivera. EMTs said you passed out from blood loss. You did good work tonight. Daniel's throat was dry. The girl. And the baby. Are they safe? The officer smiled faintly. Safe and sound. The girl, Lila Porter, is under protective care. We've confirmed everything she told you. Her stepfather, Roy Tanner, was wanted in 3 states for assault and child endangerment. You helped stop a monster. Daniel exhaled shakily, his body relaxing for the first time in hours. Thank God. The officer hesitated. She's been asking to see you. Said she won't talk to anyone else until she does. A few minutes later, the door opened quietly. Lila stepped inside, wearing clean clothes, her hair tied back loosely. She still looked pale, fragile even, but there was light in her eyes this time. In her arms, baby Hope slept peacefully, wrapped in a hospital blanket. Daniel smiled weakly. You made it. Lila's eyes filled with tears. Because of you, I didn't think anyone would help me. I thought the world had already decided what I deserved. Daniel shook his head. You and your daughter deserve a life, a real one. Don't ever doubt that. She moved closer, placing a hand on his. I heard what the police said. They're going to keep us in protective custody until we can move somewhere new. They said I might even get a second chance at school. That's good, Daniel said softly. That's how it should be. She hesitated for a moment, then whispered, I named her Hope because I didn't have any left when she was born. But then you found us. You gave it back. Daniel's throat tightened. He looked down at the tiny sleeping face, the small fingers curled into her mother's hand. She's beautiful, he said quietly, and she's lucky to have you. Lila smiled, a real one this time, small but pure. We're both lucky. For a long while, they just sat there in silence, the hum of the hospital machines, the soft rhythm of life returning to normal. Later that evening, when the nurse came in to check his vitals, Daniel turned on the small TV above his bed. The local news anchor's voice filled the room. A subway station clerk is being hailed as a hero tonight after rescuing a missing teenager and her newborn baby from her abusive stepfather. Authorities say his quick thinking and courage saved 2 lives. Daniel winced, embarrassed by the word hero. He'd never thought of himself as one. He was just a man who'd done what felt right, what anyone should have done. The next morning, as he was being discharged, Lila and Hope were waiting by the exit. Lila held a small paper cup of coffee and handed it to him with a shy grin. Thought you could use one that doesn't taste like burnt metal. Daniel laughed. You remember? Kind of hard to forget, she said softly. They said we'll be moving soon. New city, new names. I'll be okay. Hope will too, he nodded. That's all that matters. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small subway token, the old kind, worn and scratched. It was in your jacket. I thought maybe you'd want it back. Daniel looked at it, then shook his head. Keep it, a reminder that you made it out, that you're free. Lila blinked back tears, hugging the token to her chest. Thank you. For everything. He smiled. Take care of her. And of yourself. As she turned to leave, Daniel watched the 2 of them walk toward the sunlight spilling through the glass doors. Lila holding her baby close, the world finally open ahead of them. For the first time in years, he felt something warm stir inside him. Hope. Quiet but steady. That night, back in the empty subway station, Daniel sat in his booth again. The city's noise filled the tunnels as trains came and went, people rushing past, unaware of what had happened just nights before. He glanced toward the hallway where he'd found them, Lila and her newborn, terrified and alone, and smiled faintly. Sometimes, he thought, miracles don't fall from the sky. Sometimes they're found in the quiet corners of the world, in the hands of people who still care enough to stop and help. He looked into the camera, as if speaking to someone far beyond the station. So if you're watching this, he said softly, don't ever walk past someone who needs you. You never know whose life you might save. Ending call to action. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to Kindness Tales Live, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness still exists. Because sometimes, one small act of compassion can change everything.